Futurama is one of those shows that is both outlandish and relatable. Taking place in the year 3000, it has a huge range of memorable characters that somehow still perfectly satire our world, despite taking place 1,000 years in the future. But among the many villains on the show, who comes out as the most dastardly? Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Futurama Villains, Evil to Most Evil.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
For this list, we'll be ranking based on the influence the villain has, the scale of people that their acts have influenced, and how much lasting damage they have caused. First on our list, as the least evil, we have the Master of the Hunt. Featured in only one episode, he was responsible for leading the fox hunt.
I, sir, am the master of the hunt.
Though by societal standards he was nothing more than a gentleman, he was also revealed to be a very cunning man of little morals. Fox hunting has been established to already be an unsavory sport, to say the least. But when he's challenged about his hobby, his response is to not only disregard all of Leela's concerns and protest, but also decide to hunt Bender in place of the fox. The only reason we rank him so low is because he himself was revealed to be robotic in nature, which wound up being a huge question as to whether it was really immoral in the first place for him to be hunting a fox that was also exposed to be robotic. Next up, we have Fry's ex-girlfriend, Michelle. Mainly seen in flashbacks, she does make a larger appearance in one episode where she was frozen as a way of dealing with Fry's disappearance. The viewers initially feel bad for her situation, though we quickly learn that she was not the best girlfriend for Fry. In fact, she wasn't the best person in general. She's controlling and takes advantage of Fry's low self-esteem and self-worth.
Quit standing up for yourself, Fry!
She was pretty toxic. Every choice that she influences him to make leads him further and further into trouble until it finally gets to the point where he thinks that he's 1,000 years further into the future. Luckily, they're not in a desert wasteland and are just outside of Los Angeles. Funny enough, but Michelle ends up leaving Fry high and dry for Pauly Shore, despite all that he went through to make her happy. Perhaps not the most vile of all the Futurama villains, but she was a bad partner. And this was only after we had seen so many flashbacks of her, already leaving Fry with no warning at all. When Bender took up robot boxing, we encountered the character Fnog, who was revealed to be Leela's former sensei. One would think, with being a sensei, he'd be a disciplined instructor that would teach his students to be respectable. But instead, what we were left with was a vile and misogynistic little creep.
No girl has the will of a warrior.
He never committed any murders and he never ran a gang, but he has earned a spot on our list simply because of the negative influence that he had on not only Leela, but all the other fighters that he had come into contact with. As if it wasn't bad enough that he taught his students to look down on the women that would show an interest in any competitive sport, but he also robotically controlled the fighter that Bender was up against. Fortunately, Leela was able to get her closure by facing off against Fnog for the last time, and we didn't have to deal with the character for the rest of the series. Though we were once led to believe that Calculon was a top celebrity at all the Futurama, we eventually learned that there was one higher ranking, Langdon Cobb. Langdon was a formidable opponent, but we had to place him lower on our list because he did try to stop people from being hurt due to his ability. The type of creature that Langdon was gave him the advantage of feeding off of people's praise for him. The stronger his ego became, the stronger he became. This eventually becomes his downfall once Bender shows Langdon just how well of a photo he takes of the actor. The fact that the viewers were left with the images of seeing their favorite characters as Mayor Huss because of this man left a bitter taste in the mouths of the fan base. Not to mention likely more than a few sleepless nights just thinking about the frightening image. Next, we have the briefly mentioned fiancé to the robot prince, Flavia. When the Planet Express employees get into trouble with a body swapping device, Bender encounters her while he's trying to rob the prince.
Hello.
It's during this time that he learned she had the ultimate goal of betraying the prince and murdering him. It wasn't an attack that was directed at Bender specifically, nor any of the other protagonists, but it still made her underhanded and cruel. We don't see if she was able to achieve her wish to kill the prince, but her plan was sneaky enough to label her an evildoer. Moving on, a conflicting reoccurring character, we have Dr. Banjo. He's meant to be a man of great intelligence, that is, an ape of great intelligence, but his actions actually lead him to be proven as anything but. His scientific approach is short-sighted more than it is anything else. His hatred for humans leads him to have a small circle of scientific minds to reflect off of. He doesn't necessarily do anything that inflicts direct physical pain on another, though he has been known to nearly attack our heroes when they go on to the ape planet. We're mostly ranking him as a villain due to the negative impact he has on the minds of the people he's around. His stubborn nature and refusal to accept anything, even with solid evidence, causes him to be a harmful influence on others, and it's not limited to just the scientific community. The Slurm Factory owner, Guillermo, is next. When we see a lot of his development is during Fry's tour of the Slurm Factory. A Willy Wonka parody, Guillermo is seen mistreating his staff, ignoring safety procedures, and using a substance that he knows will be addictive.
Why, those are the Grunkalunkas.
We can appreciate that he's a businessman, but to package and sell something that people would have an issue with if they really knew what it was is a shady practice. When our protagonist discovered what the source of the actual Slurm soda was, they expressed their understandable repulsion. It's unclear what happens to Guillermo afterwards, but considering that we see Slurm is still a product for the show, we can only assume that he was continuing his unethical practices. Not the most challenging foe, but still qualifies as a slave owner and distributor of a possibly unsafe product.
They're basically slaves.
Especially since we've seen that one can actually glow if they drink it excessively. Next, we have Leela's almost husband, Al. He seems like a pretty forgettable character, but we do feel that he's worth mentioning. Al didn't only take advantage of Leela's desire for a home and closure concerning where she came from, we also find out that he used the same method on several other alien women. And to top it off, his motivation for doing so was not much of an explanation at all. When he's confronted at his and Leela's wedding, Al's explanation is that he wanted many women to clean his mini castles and serve him. We were able to see Al get his just desserts, with him getting the crap beaten out of him by the soon-to-be brides that he tricked. Al proved to be a real user and manipulator of all alien women. Though quite possibly one of the most beloved anti-heroes in all of animation, we had to include Bender Bending Rodriguez on this list. You don't have to be a longtime fan to know just some of the things that Bender is guilty of.
I'm gonna dance on your corpse right now!
He's quick to sell others out, let his temper get the best of him, lets his libido get him into even more trouble than necessary, and has a much harder time learning lessons than almost everyone on the show. But we've also learned that Bender can be the victim too. There are many episodes in which we see the more vulnerable side of his personality. The attachment to his new friends, his love for his eventual son, and his fear of no longer existing lead him to also do a lot of good deeds. We had to include him due to his desire to constantly come out on top and commit criminal acts, but he's proven to be just as good as he is evil. But there's no denying that he has a really dark side. Pickles, the Oracle robot, we felt we had to mention on this list. Featured more towards the end of the series, Pickles was a tool that law enforcement used in order to predict crimes and try to stop them. It's a good practice in theory, but we do see the negative impact that it has on the robot. It's easy to feel bad for Pickles when we see what he's subjected to. It makes it easy to understand why he was trying to find any solution possible in order to get out of that circumstance. Was it a little underhanded to frame an innocent robot for murder? Absolutely. But we also can't rank him as more powerful because despite his abilities, he was not able to succeed. That's actually a relief, considering how scary this guy could have been had he been able to continue. The adorable and beloved tap dancer Tanya is next on our list. No one believed Bender when he said that she was evil, and who could blame them?
She's a monster.
You're insane!
Tanya is a perfect portrayal of what you would think an innocent little girl would be. She expresses that she only has an interest in dancing, and that a condition makes it so that she might not be able to do it for very long. But we learn that dancing isn't her only interest. Tanya's main motivation is that she wants to win and is willing to do anything in order to achieve that, even if it means assaulting a fellow competitor in order to get them out of the game. After her near-death experience, she expresses to Bender that it didn't make them friends and that she was going to stomp him out during the next competition, earning her the title as irredeemably evil. Though he's given us more than a few catchy songs, that didn't save the Robot Devil from ending up on this list. He has a special fixation on Fry, Leela, and Bender. It should be no surprise that as the devil, he takes a certain amount of joy in torturing torturing and making one-sided deals with everyone he comes into contact with. But there's a lot of questions surrounding the Robot Devil and how he came into creation. If he is a machine, as we see when Bender is able to control him, we can only assume that he was built and programmed by someone. Which brings us to the question of free will, and how much he commits is done by him. Noble leader of the Omicronian race, Lurr is next on the list. Throughout his run on the show, we begin to see his more sensitive side. We see his relationship with his son, his wife, and his overall ambitions to take over other planets. Though intimidating, we place him here on our list. He's civil with the protagonist, displaying a great deal of respect towards Leela. When his wife kicks him out of their home for being too lazy, Lurr retreats to Planet Express to receive aid from the humans. He's taken our hero's advice more than a few times, even asking for their help to stage an invasion. We have to rank the Donbot and his henchmen together. For the majority of the time that we know these characters, we see them interacting together and as a team. To a certain degree, they can be understanding and sympathetic, but these are very rare instances. Like many portrayals of the Mafia in the media, the Donbot treats his henchmen much like a family. They attend functions together. The Donbot provides necessities for his henchmen, such as getting new clamps when they believe Flexo's flashing money around when he's not supposed to. They make a point to not attack anyone around Flexo in order to take him out.
Remember, only killed the one with the beard.
When the Donbot goes after Bender, he sends in clamps in order to find out where Bender is being hidden, but gives the order not to harm anyone else in order to not blow Clamp's cover. Next, we have the neglectful soda machine, Bev. She and Bender had a love-hate relationship, with emphasis on the hate part. After a single night together, they wound up being parents to Ben. Bev was quick to abandon their son simply because she couldn't take his laughing anymore. She claims that she screamed until her throat was sore before leaving him with Bender.
He won't stop giggling no matter how much I scream at him.
When she tried to regain custody, she had taken her son to a dilapidated home where he was neglected. When she gets pregnant again, this time by one of the police officers, she says that all she wants is a child to neglect and forgets about her first son.
As long as I got a baby to neglect, I'm happy.
That's good news for the first son, but it is disappointing that she wound up not being punished for her actions. A blast from the past from one of the earlier seasons, we have Project Satan, a completely unhinged vehicle that was the product of experimentation and illegal science that should not have taken place. He was meant to be the most evil car in existence, a combination of parts from other vehicles that had been dubbed as evil. He was supposed to be a weapon for the military. He gained the title as Werecar and influenced other characters such as Bender and Calculon. When Bender, Leela, and Fry try to reach out to him to sympathize with the situation, they find that Project Satan was not in mourning for his circumstances at all, but rather enjoyed the role that he had. Only featured in this one episode, he was destroyed, ending the curse that he had placed upon others. It would have been interesting to see more of his character, just knowing that compiling a whole bunch of parts from other things that were labeled as vile or horrendous can result in something like Project Satan is an interesting science. The full extent of his acts are unknown. The most we really know about his curse is that it caused others to become werecars and forced them to take the lives of those closest to them. But how many he infected and how many lives were taken because of it remains unknown. It wouldn't be a Futurama evil character list without Richard Nixon's head. Despite what you may think of the inspiration for this character, there's absolutely no denying that this portrayal of the former United States president is, deep down in his soul, a cowardly being that only wants a position for the power that it gives.
That's my style. I like to kick 'em when they're down.
We will grant him some credit. Most of the time, he's trying to solve some sort of dilemma that the Earth is facing. When he was beginning to come into power, he did it under the guise of a technicality, stating that no body can run for president more than twice, and use Bender's body to run for president. There's also the question of his competency when it comes to his reliance on Zapp Brannigan. Although Zapp is known to have a track record, Nixon still relies on him frequently until the very end of the series. Not only that, but he's also known to rely heavily on Ogden Warnstrom, a scientist who has no interest in actually helping humanity and only wants to further line his pockets so that he can continue his own studies. Known as one of the most violently unpredictable characters in the show, Roberto is next. His attention span doesn't lead him to achieve a lot of large-scale attacks against others. For the most part, Roberto is short-sighted and impatient.
Don't you get it? I'm crazy!
His motives are unclear, ranging from wanting to make the biggest score he can to just making others afraid of him, with the gain for cash just being an added bonus. We had to grant him some points because he is resourceful, able to twist a situation to benefit him in almost every encounter, but we're unable to rank him higher since he's also defeated through simple means, in such occasions as when Zoidberg used his body odor. Possibly the most negligent and arrogant space captain in existence. Zapp Brannigan is next. When he first appears, he seems like your regular, clueless heartthrob that you might see being a conflicting love interest. Instead, he was a regrettable one-night stand and user of all of those around him. He treats everyone as a pawn or tool. Even those he claims to care for and respect are little more than a trinket to flaunt and use to his advantage, such as when he was with Leela's mother. He's responsible for getting countless soldiers killed just to win a conflict, planting a bomb in Bender without his knowledge, trying to trick a race into signing a fake peace treaty so he can justify attacking them, and tricking Leela into thinking the Earth was destroyed so he could impress her, not to mention destroying Dupe headquarters and taking Kif down with him.
Whoopsie daisy.
His advice for his second-in-command lands Kif into trouble with Amy, and he constantly berates the only soul in the universe that's been with him through thick and thin. There are some theories that surround Zapp that suggest that he may have suffered from some sort of trauma or has some other mental illness, which is what leads him to be careless. That, coupled with the fact that he does show some regret for a few of his actions, keeps him from falling lower on our list. After all, much of what he carries out is done on orders from the president, or from the pressure of maintaining the lives of the Earth's populace, even if it means enslavement. He isn't the bravest man, but we have to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's not the most evil. We don't see a lot of his actions on screen when it comes to his career, and the mistakes he does make are usually chalked up to him being of low intelligence. This was a tricky one to place, but we have to say Robot Santa deserves our next spot. There might be a couple of people who wonder why he isn't further down on our list, and to that we have to say that it comes down to an age-old question that has been in the Futurama fanbase. Can robots fully be held responsible for their own actions? There's been a few mentions of the lack of free will within robots, with an episode even dedicated to Bender trying to fight to get one. If we keep that in mind, we can say that Robot Santa is only responsible to a certain degree. Even when his character is first being discussed, Professor Farnsworth makes the comment that it was an error while building him that caused Robot Santa to perceive everyone as naughty.
Due to a programming error, Santa's standards were set too high.
Now, should naughty people be hunted down like animals?
I'm going to shove coal so far up your stocking.
Absolutely not. But unlike the portrayal of Santa in, say, American Dad or Family Guy, Robot Santa doesn't have much control over what he does. We rank him higher for what he's able to accomplish, but we can't rank him as the most powerful because he's not even really in control of himself. And we do want to point out that he does spare Bender and treats Zoidberg kindly when the crustacean is the only one on his good list. Seen as one of the most valuable scientific influences of their time, we had to include Ogden Warnstrom. A longtime rival of our beloved Professor Farnsworth, Warnstrom is responsible for many different inventions that nearly caused more damage than they did good, and all with the president's blessing. His main concern was not the betterment of the people or trying to make mankind more advanced. Instead, Warnstrom was far more preoccupied with gaining status and a higher pay. And we agree that for the stuff that he made, he deserves to get a big paycheck. But we also feel that he should have taken more consideration into the lives of the people he was affecting. Ultimately, his arrogance and short-sightedness almost cost the lives of our main heroes and countless others more than a couple of times.
In theory, perhaps.
Taking the silver medal ability, we have the nudist aliens from Bender's Big Score. We aren't placing them this low on our list simply because they're unpleasant to witness on the screen, though they certainly are some of the most unpleasant creatures featured in Futurama. We had to place them as our second-ranked villains because of their ability to gather and use information in the way that they saw fit. They were dubbed as scammers, and really we can't argue with that title.
Hi, we own your company now.
As they gained more and more power and influence, they took delight in seeing everyone around them suffer at their hands. And we can't help but admit how impressive it was that they were able to use a time code in order to gain more power. It should come as no surprise that we have Mom and her sons claiming the gold medal. For longtime viewers of the show, this should be an easy one to explain. Mom is the head of not only a very large corporation that has essentially monopolized not only all of New York and a great portion of the planet in the year 3000, she uses power and influence to commit a number of questionable business practices. We mentioned earlier on our list that Guillermo is shady and unethical, but Mom takes it to a whole new level, abusing her 3 sons, forcing the robots to revolt just because she couldn't stand Mother's Day, and creating a device that could spy on people using their own point of views are just a few of the things that land her in our top spot. We will say in her defense that as far as animated villains go, she's one of the most amusing and oddly relatable. Alright guys, you're up. What do you think? Who's the most evil among the Futurama villains? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.